Welcome everyone to the weekly meetup. It's September 12th, 2021. We got an exciting program tonight, but first, StoryTrading is not an investment advisor. Investing in securities involves significant risk and loss. This event is being recorded. It's going to be made available to our VIP members exclusively for a period of about 5 business days, and then it will be posted on social media. Quickly, what's in a story trade? Story trading is understanding market pricing, aka the story behind the trade through the lens of the 4 pillars: fundamentals, catalysts, sentiment, and technicals. We have our app coming out very, very soon. It's going to be the place to discover, collaborate, and validate market-moving information through crowdsourced research and social collaboration. Make sure to go to our website, storytrading.com, and sign up for the waitlist. So tonight, every time we have a presentation at our weekly meetup, we track new stock picks as VIP picks. So if you hop on over to storytrading.com and click on VIP picks, you can see about 50 plus picks. They've been dramatically outperforming the market. And tonight we're inviting back one of our top presenters, Ashleigh. And if you go look over there, you'll see he had presented Aehr Test Systems on March 14th, 2021, just about 5.5 months ago at $2.56. And today that stock is $10.11, up 295%. That's 591% annualized. So we're excited to welcome back Ashleigh because the stock is presenting. There's some sort of relationship, similar industries, and maybe some other connections between Aehr Test Systems and Rockley Photonics. So we're excited to hear about that. Ticker symbol RKLY. Before we bring you on, Ashleigh, just want to go through a couple other slides. So Rockley last trade 980. This is a 1.24 billion market cap, probably the largest market cap stock that's ever been presented, except for the one we had from guest presenter Jonah Lupton on Upstart, maybe was the one he presented. Yeah. So this is kind of new for us, delving into larger market cap stocks. I'm very excited about that going forward. We're going to have StoryTrading make a much bigger effort and focus on larger cap companies. So very excited about that. So here's the chart so far on Rockley. There's not much history there. It's a SPAC. It's only been trading for a short period of time. And through the story trading process, we aim to understand the story behind the trade. What causes the ups and the downs in the stock price. And by understanding the past and understanding what kind of factors cause a stock to go up or down, you can make better trades and investment decisions. Fundamentals. So really mislabeled there. The slide should be labeled the 4 pillars. So fundamentals happens to be the most important of the 4 pillars of story trading. So I'm sure Ashleigh will have a lot to say about that, but we also want to look at catalysts, sentiment, and technicals. I will say on technicals, I ran this name past Rexman, our most popular technician here in the community. And I don't have an official chart from him yet, but he said he likes it very much. And I think he even took a position. So looking forward to hearing more about that. And with that, I'm going to stop my share and Ashleigh will give you co-host rights so you can take over the show from here. Welcome, Ashleigh. And congratulations again on Aehr.
Hi, Ben, and everyone else. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's certainly been an exciting 6 months since presenting Aehr at a hopefully convenient time for the community, and everyone, I think, hopefully knows it at this point. So Rockley actually discovered in doing some deep research on Aehr kind of earlier in the spring. It's a company that went public through a SPAC, which closed in the middle of August. And one of the exciting pieces is that the stock really didn't move much when they announced in April through an SEC filing that they were working with Apple, and Apple had paid them about, at least year to date, currently $70 million in engineering fees, which was the majority of their revenue, on their new exciting product. So why don't I hop into a share screen? Let's see. think what we'll do is we'll walk quickly through the presentation and then open up actually their investor presentation, which is pretty exciting, was updated this month as they presented at the Deutsche Bank conference last week. I would encourage anyone who's interested in doing further research, take a look at that. It's about 30 minutes long, and then again at their conference call in August for the second quarter, where you really get to hear them speak. So Dr. Rickman, who's the CEO, has been in the silicon photonics space and is perhaps a pioneer for over 30 years, and has started up and sold 2 previous companies to some of the largest players in the silicon photonics space. Silicon photonics, from maybe some might remember from Aehr Test, is where they're actually putting photonic lasers, optical lasers, onto the chip itself. And it's a sort of a huge technological advantage, particularly in their current space over the existing technology. So they originally were hoping to close the SPAC with 330 million of cash, and with some of the redemptions, they closed with about 160 million, which is still enough to get them through the end of next year's commercial launch. I suspect that they will do a raise at some point if they can't get partnerships or further engineering revenues on good terms, but I don't expect it to be from a position of need, but rather a position of want and expanding into multiple customers. The new presentation said that they're now contracted with 8 customers, up from 5 in March, and they previously dominated 50% of the smartphone wearables market, most of that likely being Apple, and that number has risen to above 60%. So they're making tremendous headway on their pipeline. So what do? They have this specialized chip that they've been working on for some time, and have I would say a significant technological advantage versus the current sort of LED offerings for wearables in the health tech space. They produce a chip that can measure biomarkers and has a higher optical performance, as well as a sort of a broader optical spectrum that allows them to measure more biomarkers than traditional LEDs, and with greater accuracy. I think at least a couple orders of magnitude better than current medical equipment that you would see in a hospital. So the basic module offers a lot of the similar technologies you'd see on the Apple Watch or the Samsung, and maybe a Fitbit, but it includes core body temp versus just skin temperature. So it offers a much better look at your health, and that's mainly through the technology that they're able to get sort of that optical spectrum from the chips you wouldn't normally be able to. In their advanced model, they're able to track lactate levels, carbon monoxide, alcohol, blood pressure, and glucose, continuous glucose monitoring, as well as hydration. And these are starting to get into, beyond just fitness to actual disease prevention and some of the areas that companies like Apple have decided that they want to move into. So today they've received a good amount of engineering from Apple. The ramp should start late 2022 with a customer launch in 2023. The Apple Watches typically are released in the fall. We could see a product sooner, in kind of earlier in the year. They're currently in human trials for the software and the algorithms that are going to kind of do some preventative checks and also monitor on a regular basis. And so that is currently being done in humans currently, and then Apple will take the product and do a much wider range over the next year as well. So they're really targeting the kind of fitness crowd, as well as all the way through med tech. And actually, they just recently announced a second partnership with a medical equipment company, the first being Medtronic, and are on their way to developing products in that space. You know, the big difference being those are likely to require FDA approval, whereas in the consumer space, they're not going to need that. So currently sitting at about a 1.3 billion market cap, share price is $10. It's been a little volatile, I think, probably to do with the low float, but there was a filing on Friday. The shares, a lot of shares are going to be registered for sale, and there will be an increased float at this point. Fully diluted, 132 million, cash of 160. So their module sells for about, depending on whether it's the basic or the advanced, $20 to $35 is what they think they'll get at gross margins of 70%. And I would imagine that SG&A and R&D are not going to be heavy expenses in the outer year, as these companies are largely going to be selling the product for them. So they kind of have the benefit of having a kind of a expense light model in that respect. So I'm going to flip over to their investor presentation. So the resolution is about 1 million times better than LED, 1,000 times more accurate. So as you can see, this is a new technology that is sort of far superior to what is available out there. And they've spent a number of years developing it, and they've been in this silicon photonics space for a very long time. The CEO is clearly excited about this becoming a mainstream chip that you will see in many different devices. One of the pieces he mentioned on the recent call at Deutsche Bank is that they're likely to get into smartphones beginning in 2024, where their chip will be doing the unlocking of phones through their use of biomarkers. So the way I kind of came across this company researching Aehr Test is because this is a silicon photonics product with the lasers being placed directly on the chip. They need testing, and it needs to be very reliable. And obviously Aehr is kind of the leader in the space of testing reliability of silicon photonics products. I believe that they are working together on this, and Rockley is doing a full wafer level production, and Aehr received orders for a biomarker application as early as November of 2020. It's actually the main reason I started to get excited, or re-excited again about the company in November of last year, was that they received about a $4 million order from an Apple supplier that was for a health tech wearable use case. And so far, this is the only product I've seen that uses silicon photonics and that would require their equipment. And if anyone knows the sort of the history of Aehr, about 4 years ago, they were supposed to get into Apple unlocking technology and ended up, Apple just needed them for a light sampling. But this time around, if Rockley is being used for unlocking for biosensors, with this type of technology, it's more likely that it's going to need extensive testing. And obviously the wearable market's big. They sell maybe 35 million watches a year, but they sell a heck of a lot more smartphones. And in the presentation, they say maybe they get $16 per wearable and 11 per smartphone. Rockley does. And obviously it was big for both companies if they do end up getting into the smartphone market, where at least Rockley is starting to grow kind of their market penetration in terms of engaged customers. With that, I think I'm maybe ready to turn it over for questions.
Cool. Thank you, Ashleigh. Fascinating product here, fascinating technology. It seems even more interesting potentially than Aehr, just pure technologically speaking. I'm wondering if, later on, if you've come across any videos that kind of visualize how this works. Have you seen that? I know these are so small, you probably can't, the naked eye probably can't even see these lasers and chips, right?
Well, this is the, if you can see the screen now, this is the product in the sort of the prototype wristwatch. And then a few slides earlier, this is the chip right here. So on the left, you've got how the chip fits into the watch. So it's pretty small, and the lasers in the visible spectron and the infrared pieces are very small as well.
So this is, I'm seeing in that image just like, it looks like just like one chip. Is this like just one specialized chip that has some sort of function for these medical functions? Is that how it works?
I think number 1 and 2, the infrared and the visible spectrum, are the ones picking up the different biomarkers there.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the number 2 is the one that has a number of different, well, they both have a number of different sort of sensors on there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What about competition?
I would say currently their competition is really in LED, and LED technology is limited by the types of biomarkers that they can check, because they're limited on the optical spectrum, where this product is able to read a much wider range of continuous chemical biomarkers.
Do they have IP protection on this?
Yeah. And they also have, in addition, their manufacturing is, or they control the process from one beginning to end. I mean, they're fabless, so they're using a Newport wafer in Wales and Skywater. Newport wafer was actually purchased in the past month by a Chinese company, but they are saying that should not have any effect on them.
Okay, let's go into this Apple relationship. You said there's $70 million in payments so far, and I want to get a sense, based on what you know, of those contract terms, because what comes to mind in my personal history is, I don't know if you're familiar with what happened with GTAT, Apple and GTAT, and I wasn't researching it so deeply, but from a superficial level, I understood that Apple was also kind of subsidizing and paying a lot of money upfront to GTAT for their technology on the Sapphire watches. And when it didn't work out, apparently the terms were really, really favorable for Apple, and it ended up being a disaster for GTAT. So what's the status? What is that 70 million for? What does Apple get? Are they testing it out? Is there a guarantee this is coming in 2023? If you can add some color on that.
Yeah, the module is complete, so they're mainly in testing of the software at this point, to make sure that the algorithms are sort of appropriately picking up what they want to see. The CEO did, on the Deutsche Bank call, talk a little bit to the relationship with Apple, and in terms of exactly as you described, those situations that other companies have run into with Apple, and how their technology gets used. They're also, as you can see, working with several other companies in addition to Apple that are, if you can see, company B has almost an equally large amount of revenue potential in 23 and 24. Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that they've got multiple engagements going is going to sort of keep Apple from sort of
Mhm.
squeezing them.
So how's this work? Maybe the arrangements are similar with the other companies, but so Apple's paid 70 million so far. Are they getting any equity for that, or is that just a upfront kind of payment for what they're going to get later?
They're basically paying to get it designed into the watch I think there's a little bit of customization
Mhm.
and how they're sort of getting it to fit into that application. But as far as I know, there's no equity, and
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So they must have really good technology for Apple to choose them and spend $70 million. Do you have, based on the research you've done, is there any doubt or risk of this, of Apple choosing a different, vendor or something in 2023, or is it Rockley and that's it?
I would say
Are
there's
they?
no other vendor out there that
Mhm.
has this capability and has the ability to test all of these different biomarkers. They basically have to scrap a product and just kind of go with what they're doing now, because you'd have to stick to LEDs, and in which case they'd be behind company B. And I believe this product launch has been delayed to some extent, but sort of not we're not talking years, but maybe months.
Mhm. Fascinating. So looking at these numbers, is this like guidance? Wow, this is coming from Rockley. That's excellent. So this is basically guidance, right? 2023, 426 million, 2024, 1 billion, over 1 billion. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, and I would always, take these sort of forecasts from SPAC companies with a little bit of a grain of salt. But you could certainly see, but when you go through if you look at the penetration rates and kind of what they're estimating, there's a few slides back here. They're certainly not unreasonable, where they think they could pick up maybe 20% of the wearables market by 24. Well, Apple's got a huge piece of that market already, and only 2% of mobile in order to hit those numbers. So you can see that they've used, at a 4% forecast, 1.1 billion being their 2024 revenue, but at a much higher penetration rate, they could come in a lot higher than that. And at a 1.13 market cap, or right now, with 160 in cash, they're basically trading at 1 times 2024 revenues, using kind of the base case penetration rate.
Okay. So here's a quote before I open it up to other people. This is kind of the $1 million question. It is definitely kind of new in our community to be looking at $1 billion plus market caps, right? And I know there's a tendency for a lot of people to automatically dismiss it. There's definitely a kind of philosophical thought out there that market inefficiencies and opportunities are more easier found in smaller micro caps, right? But looking at this technology, to me, it's really fascinating. It seems like it's a lot more sophisticated than what Aehr Test Systems is doing. It seems like their upside in revenue potentially is a lot huger than what Aehr Test Systems has been doing. So I have a question for you personally. When you compare Rockley versus Aehr, right? If you had to choose one today at today's prices, which do you think will have a better kind of risk return over 3 to 5 years from now?
That is a great question. I don't know that Aehr will be public in 3 to 5 years at the rate they're receiving orders.
Yeah.
I will say that Apple, and in the press release that Aehr made, Apple selected Aehr for their unique capabilities in this space, in being able to test very small chips, and with the level of accuracy and precision. They have a lot of different sort of knobs and adjustments that they can make in terms of figuring out when things fail, why they fail, and some of those analytics that come along with their volume test capabilities. So I think they're very their technology is very advanced on a very different level. I mean, they kind of came into play because technology caught up with them. And the reason they're in even being considered for this is because this technology has finally come out. But yeah, it's sort of on a level of its own. The CEO is very excited about getting it into both the consumer space and then getting into medical equipment. I mean, he's saying that the readouts are better than you get in the lab with medical grade equipment you'd see at a hospital and on a desktop piece of equipment. That's pretty exciting from a, not just from an investment standpoint, but in terms of
do they have like I see Florian is saying you literally just shoot a laser into your skin. Is this, can we think of this as like a med tech company? Do they have a lot of studies on this to back up, you know, all this medical you know, numbers they're trying to measuring from inside the body? Has this been proven with data? I guess it has, right?
As in, are the readouts accurate?
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't seen anything that suggests that they are not getting the numbers that they need.
Continuous glucose monitoring. I mean, look at this. Look at all these different areas. This is huge.
And the number of things they're able to track is growing. Whereas, you know, LED has its limitations. They can, you know, you look at their full feature devices that are kind of their next gen with the machine learning that's going to sort of figure out your habits. And I mean, it's a lot of it's going to be disease prevention. And
this is exciting. I'm looking at this, Ashleigh, and you know, when I got into teledoc when COVID, I've always had this exciting long-term vision for healthcare monitoring. I was always a big Star Trek fan, and you have the tricorders, right? You run the tricorders over the body. I don't know if you guys are into Star Trek, and you know, you can see everything in the body and what all the levels are real quick. To me, this is potentially the closest technology, if I'm understanding this right, to achieving that, and it could really help with digital monitoring and home, you know, remote patient monitoring and things like that. Am I reading that right? Is this what this company can get into?
That's exactly right.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I mean,
this is right. Yeah.
A clinic on the wrist is a great idea. And I was thinking, you know, I have an Android phone, but I could easily see myself switching to Apple and buying an Apple Watch just for these, to have these capabilities from a fitness standpoint and from a long-term health standpoint.
Wow. Ashleigh, I did not know this is what Rockley is about, really. I'm happy you brought this present. This is right in my wheelhouse now. I'm going to be super excited because I'm very, very bullish on this industry long term. It's awesome. So guys, why don't you start populating, raise your hands, put your questions in chat while we wait for them to come in. I'm sure I have a bunch more questions for Ashleigh. Florian says the SC Health Board, I'm not sure what SC is, believes there are several avenues for growth beyond consumer health that are not captured in the financial projections, SC, including medical devices, which require additional development effort over the next several years, including clinical trials and FDA applications to generate more consistent. All right, great.
They went public via SPAC with SC Health.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks. So Rockley fits perfectly in the medical future out. This is exciting. Like if they're successful, look, you know, one of the ways that I've always at least tried to invest, I haven't always been successful because I tend not to have enough patience. But when you're looking at like companies that are with game-changing technology with large TAMs, I think one of the best ways to invest is just have kind of vision, right? Like, where does this product fit into the marketplace, right? And how big is the TAM? And to me, I think if you nail that, right, if you answer those questions correctly, the financial model doesn't mean much, you know? In some ways, I think like financial models are super, super more important for microcap companies because Wall Street, you know, punishes those small companies because they're always right around the corner from another raise, right? and they can get terrible, terms on those raises, which kill microcap companies, and that's why they're targeted by shorts and things like that, right? But when we start going bigger cap companies, I think the name of the game is kind of visualizing what the future is going to look like, right? And which company is going to be part of that future. And to me, this is one of those examples. Like if I were to invest in this company, I just like buy it, close my eyes, wouldn't look at a financial model, and hold it for 5 or 10 years potentially. So, because a $1 billion market cap for a TAM this big, and this type of really game-changing technology that apparently there's no competition for yet, this is really intriguing. So, really happy you brought this to the community, Ashleigh.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, they have so much more experience in silicon photonics. I would imagine it would take years for companies to catch up with a similar product or similar design. Maybe there's another technology that maybe comes out over time, or I could see software potentially being a risk at getting better software. But if you can't pull the data through optically, then the software isn't going to do enough to really help you. What do you think? I mean, the CEO believed that certainly this could start to take for those monitoring their blood glucose levels for diabetes, certainly take some of that market in the future. Obviously, they've got to go through trials before that, but some of the pinpricks are likely to go away.
Keep that slide. Go back to that slide here. This is funny. That guy there, Hooman Abedazel. For those of you who don't know, my legal first name is Hooman, spelled a little differently, Houman. There's a lot of these guys on the top, 1, 2, 3. I think they're all from Iran, which is where I'm from. Ruzbe, Hooman, and Nazarian. I wonder if they all knew each other or something, but that's pretty interesting. Very interesting. Florian's mentioning something about we plan to commence data collection trials in 2022 with production of units. So this is something that raises a potential concern. I'm still not clear on, is this proven technology or not? Because they're saying they're going to be commencing trials. Is there a risk here, right? Maybe Apple's going out there, they're putting the Apple Watch out there, and then there's going to be trials, and maybe those trials don't work out. Is that what Florian is getting to over here?
Well, I think the way I see it is the hardware is done, and they're working on honing the algorithms for the software, where they've got some products on maybe 3, 4, they said in the thousands, so maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people are actually wearing them right now, and they're getting the data and honing the algorithms. They're going to give it over to Apple, I believe, later this year, if not early next year, and they're going to launch a wider trial and kind of hone it further, maybe with their own algorithms or maybe things that they want to see, or their own sort of, maybe they gamify it or change the interface of some sort, and then they're going to launch it.
Mm-hmm. This is exciting. Ashleigh, if you're right about this is going to be another home run for you, maybe even bigger than Aehr.
And the last time we looked at last presentation you heard from Apple, they want to move into health tech. That is their next big leap. And AR/VR is on their roadmap, but health tech is really where they want to make their impact in the world. And that's why I don't think they scrap this program. I think they work at it until they get it the way they want it. Maybe they would have launched in 2022, but they wanted to get it right.
Cool, amazing. All right, we got a few minutes left on this. I'm going to ask, unless people raise their hands or ask other questions, I want to see if you can talk a little bit about the relationship with Aehr a little bit more, because this looks like a gigantical market. When I talked to Gain, when we interviewed him, and I think even privately when I talked to him afterwards about silicon photonics, he keeps kind of indicating that he thinks silicon carbide is a much larger market for Aehr than silicon photonics. I'm looking at this and I'm like, dude, this seems like it could be much bigger. Like, what's he getting at, and what are your thoughts on market size for Aehr on photonics versus carbide?
I think, well, he got burned in 2017 by Apple, and he doesn't. And silicon carbide is an obvious. It's happening right now. It's hot. Whereas in photonics, there is some risk that this project doesn't get done. But they have a lot of different avenues. I think part of it is that the business they currently have with Intel is with optical transceivers, which is I would say a less sophisticated use of silicon photonics. But they're also moving into using the lasers in their chips as early as 2023, and that could also include stacking memory on that chip as part of a 3D sort of stacked process. So there are many different applications for photonics beyond just the health tech and into Intel chips as well. But on the carbide side, you're also seeing it obviously in the electric vehicle ramp and in solar and wind power, and anytime you really have to invert a significant amount of power. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see that technology move into other spaces as well. I think it's just what's in front of him right now that he knows he can deliver on.
Good stuff, Ashleigh. If you're right about this, you're gonna soon be a very, very rich man. So with that, let's move on the show here. Ashleigh, hang on a few minutes if you can. Going to let everyone know we can continue collaborating in the Rockley Research Group. The link was shared just Friday in the VIP investing room. We'll reshare that link tonight. Also, just go to our website to see what other events are coming up. Make sure to follow us on YouTube and Twitter. So what we're going to do is we're going to end the recording now, but we'll continue with the extended VIP session. Perhaps there'll be a few people who don't want to be on recording who will ask you some questions about Rockley, and we'll do VIP Trade of the Week. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating.